Hey guys, welcome back to Fix It Friday. So this week we're going to be working on an old classic, the Atari 2600. And this console is kind of the final version of the Atari 2600 before they finally, discontinued it in the United States. So this was made around the same time as the Atari 7800, and so you can see that it's been miniaturized quite a lot, and it has the same kind of design language as the 7800 does. So if you've had one of these or played on one of these, then you know that the only way you can get video and sound out of it is through RF video. And that can look pretty terrible, especially if you live in an urban area with lots of radio frequency interference. So what we're going to do today is a very simple mod. So this is a great project for, for beginners, and it just makes it so much easier to connect your 2600 to any other type of display. So we're going to be installing a composite video mod, and you can either purchase these chips pre-assembled or you can make them yourself, which is what I'm going to do today. And what's really nice about this particular form factor of the 2600 is that you can do it without having to cut any holes in the shell. So it'll look factory original, and you get that improved video and audio quality. Okay, so let's get to it. Okay, so I thought I would just quickly film the game Combat on this 2600 before I do any kind of modification. And so you can really see the RF interference here. So all I'm doing is just connecting a RF video cable straight into the console and then into this TV here. And there's a lot of noise and interference. And you can see it's even having trouble with holding the image there. So yeah, depending on where you live, you can get a lot of interference with RF, and that's certainly what's happening with this particular console. So yeah, hopefully this modification will clean this up quite a bit. Okay, so the first order of business here is to populate this little composite video mod chip. And so you can see that this is actually quite simple. There's only 3 components. You've got 2 resistors and a transistor. So this is an open source file, so this can be printed with any kind of PCB printing service like PCBWay, for example. And these parts are super easy to get. I'll have a list in the description here, and you can get them through Amazon or eBay or any source of electronic components. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so opening this console up is about as easy as it gets. You've got 5 screws on the bottom, Phillips screws, that you just have to remove. But one thing you do have to bear in mind is that after those screws have been removed, there are 2 little plastic tabs located here and here. So you got to be careful with those as you open up the console. They can break. In fact, this plastic is actually rather brittle compared to other versions of the 2600. So in general, you should be careful with it as you're working with it. So I'm just going to take like a little screwdriver thingy here and just kind of pull on the tab. There we go. And now we got this tab, and that's it. Once the console is open, you've got to also be careful because there's a little ribbon cable, as you can see over here, and this connects all of the controls on the front of the console. So you just got to carefully push that out. It's just friction fit into place. But this kind of connector is fragile, so again, you just want to be really careful with it. Okay, so now that it's open, you'll see that there's RF shielding, and this is something that Atari did back in the day that was extremely annoying, is that there are like these little plastic, or no, sorry, metal tabs that hold this stuff into place. And so you just got to come around on the bottom with either a screwdriver, like a pair of pliers or something, and you can either snap these off, or you can use a pair of pliers and bend them and use that to just remove the RF shielding. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so the next step that we've got to take care of is to remove a small number of components on the 2600. So there's specifically a few resistors we've got to take out, and then this giant coil right here. And normally what I do is I actually just come in with some flush cutters and just snip off all these other components, and then with my soldering iron I remove this coil here. All right, so we're also going to go ahead and remove this little port for the RF modulator. So we're going to go ahead and do that because the plan is to take this Sega Genesis Model 2 connector port and put that here in the place of this RF. And this will allow us to have a composite video jack without cutting any holes into the console. And it's also very neat and clean. So instead of having, 3 separate connectors for stereo sound and for composite, you've got everything coming out of this one port. Okay, so now that the RF port has been removed, we're going to go ahead and scrape away the solder mask in this whole region over here, because we're going to go ahead and attach this using solder to this point over here. So to do that, you can use a variety of different methods, but what I'm going to do is use this flathead screwdriver tip and just use it to scrape away the solder mask just like this. And there's plenty of it here, so it should make a very tight and secure connection. All right, so the solder has been added to this ground plane over here. And I also took a small piece of Kapton tape, and you can see it in camera as this yellow stuff here. And I've used that to just block off this little pad here, because this pad is the RF video signal, and I don't want to interfere with anything, so I made a point of just keeping this completely isolated from everything else. So now I'm going to go ahead and take my port and try to center it as best as I can, and then I'm going to go ahead and use solder and melt it all around the underneath and on the side, just so that I can lock it back in. And you can see I've put it back in the case so that I can make sure that the positioning is correct. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and do the final steps and combine the mod chip with the 2600 Junior. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach some double-sided tape to the mod chip and place it right here because it's a nice unobtrusive spot and there's plenty of space for the chip to just sit there. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to find points for our 5 volts, our ground, and our video signal. So video signal is going to come out of this point here where resistor 56 used to be. We're going to get our 5 volts from this point right here where this transistor once was. And then ground can be taken from anywhere right next to the chip. And then we're going to send video out to the multi-out connector over here. And we're also going to send sound from this point over here to the multi-out. We don't need to worry about ground because everything is already grounded to the chassis because of this connection that we've made right here. So really, we just need to send over 2 wires, a wire for video and a wire for audio. right, so we're back, and I've reassembled the Atari 2600, and I'm connecting to Composite Video using my Genesis Model 2 cables. And so, yeah, you can see that this picture is way better than what we had from RF. There's no interference, all the colors are nice and crisp and clear. And what's great is that I didn't have to do any modifications to the shell, and, this particular unit was, like, very clean, it looked great, so, it looks stock from the outside, and it looks like that port was always meant to be there. What's also really cool about this particular way of doing the mod is that if you ever wanted to upgrade the video even further with, for example, RGB, you could do so and still use the same connector and not do any other kind of destructive damage to the console. All right, so I hope you guys like this kind of content. This is a really good project if you're a beginner and you're trying to get into modifying consoles. And yeah, if you like this kind of stuff, I have videos out every Friday. And of course, if you've got consoles that you need to be repaired, fixed up, modified, you name it, you can always reach me directly at oneuprestorations.com. Okay, guys, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye.